Hey everyone, Daniel and Chris here with the Superhero Show, as we always are now. It was really annoying last week. After we recorded, as this always happens, they revealed Jared Leto's new look of the Joker.
Yeah, Salam Udin wrote in and said, I'm starting to think DC don't like your show, as just after the show was probably recorded, we got the first look at the Joker. It's like they're messing with
every
us.
bloody... Or they literally just go, oh, let's put that stuff up on Friday. So that's pretty annoying. So what we're going to talk about, there's been loads of Suicide Squad kind of leaks and tidbits this week. We're going to round them all up. But first off, I think we should focus on the most recent leak, which is photos of what looks like Batman. Ben Affleck, he has a hood over his head, so can't confirm that, of Batman on the set of Suicide Squad.
He's definitely flown into town, hasn't he? And the rumours are he might be shooting a flashback sequence. We got an email about it actually from Ryan Denham, who says, I'm hoping the as yet unconfirmed rumours of a flashback to BVS of Joker killing Jason Todd and being unable to save him are also true. We've had Batman on screen who's been riddled with tragedy, but in my view nothing comes close to Batman losing a son-like figure who he was responsible for and the guilt and anger that would bring him. We could have a more vengeful and ruthless Batman as a result, which explains his reaction to the seeming threat of Superman.
It's great, Ryan.
Yeah, so don't know, do you think that makes Suicide Squad a more interesting proposition?
First off, I feel like Suicide Squad is a weird sell for a wider audience, and I think suddenly you got Batman's in this movie, people are like, oh right,
yeah,
like, and you know, obviously Joker's a huge character, but Suicide Squad's such a weird title as well as have the word suicide in the title.
Yeah,
like when they did Lego Marvel the game and they brought out the Suicide Squad downloadable characters because it's a kids game, let's get rid of the name Suicide. I think it helps obviously having Batman.
Yeah,
Batman, for crying out loud. So I think that will help hook people.
But do you think that was the plan all along, or do you think that's a studio getting nervous and thinking if we stick this in, we're going to get more bums on seats?
I think it was probably all along, because what I think they're trying to do is rapid universe building, and I think having as many of these connections as soon as possible helps and works in their favour to unite all this stuff. And I really like the idea of having, because this is Grayne Temple's Batman. This is him at the end of a career of fighting crime. So it'd be great, obviously no need to do the origin of Batman again, so it'd be great to have a flashback that's something other than the Pearl Necklace and Joe Chill. I wonder if it'll be a prologue or a flashback. And I wonder if they'll take the sheet off him for the actual filming, or Batman's under the sheet for the... I like the hood. It's just like you can't use the cape. So does this make it more interesting? Are you interested in this movie anyway?
I'm intrigued. It's one of those ones where, like, the bits that keep escaping, the bits of news and the photos and things, just have me scratching my head a bit. Yeah, so
overnight, before filming, we got some of the leaked shots of Will Smith as Deadshot even. And again, I think what people are saying about the DC movies is they feel like maybe the tone doesn't feel like there's a uniting aesthetic for a lot of these characters. So he looks like a 1970s pimp. He looks Superfly.
Someone said in our comments that it looks like him in Wild Wild West a little bit.
Yeah, I got that. An American Gang, like the film American Gang. Yeah, that kind of period.
Again, you can't judge it. That might be another flashback. We might be seeing him before he becomes sort of superhero / villain. And equally, there was what looked like him in some kind of armour that made him look like a Power Ranger, pretty much. So it's hard to get a handle on what this is.
But it feels like if Batman is involved, and obviously it's easy to say there's not a unifying... You're seeing still photography, you're seeing paparazzi pictures. They're not going to look the same because they're not all like through a camera lens and lit properly and colour graded, and cinematographer's not behind them. So it's going to look a bit wonky, I think. But it's interesting because we've got so much more... It feels like David Ayer is like releasing a lot of stuff about Suicide Squad, and we're a long way out still. So I feel like it's just a bit confusing at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the nature of film now. The first day of shooting, Bryan Singer's tweeting pictures of X-Men Apocalypse. It's just how it's going to happen now, I think, is that Twitter and Instagram are becoming the place that we find all this stuff.
Rather than these very like planned and plotted drops. It's kind of more on the go, and the director authorising the stuff.
Like the build-up towards the unveiling of the Joker, which is something we've not managed to address on the show because it broke late. So we have David Mitchell Baker says, I was wondering what you guys thought of the new Jared Leto Joker picture, whether you liked it or disliked it, and what kind of approach you think DC might be going for with the character and the Suicide Squad movie as a whole.
So we should do our thoughts. So what was your initial reaction? I saw it first thing Saturday morning on my birthday.
Was it a happy birthday?
It was a fun day watching everyone's reactions, and obviously I jumped on the bandwagon and sent out a few hilarious tweets.
Did you?
Honestly, cutting. But it's weird. I also then immediately kind of balanced it out by tweeting a picture of Quicksilver from a year ago.
Exactly.
On the Empire cover. And you know what? Like,
we battered at the time.
Yeah, and ultimately I think in the film, I still don't love the outfit.
No.
It does definitely looks better on camera and lit in a scene in context than it does in that picture. But what makes it better is the performance, the set piece he's involved with, and the overall movie. What you're seeing with that Leto picture is a look stripped of a performance. You don't know what he's doing with it. You don't know how he's going to interact. He might have amazing dialogue. It doesn't detract from the fact the tattoo on the forehead is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's my only problem with it, but it's a big problem.
Yeah,
it's a disaster, really.
The one on the forehead is just general. I think all of them. I can't imagine the Joker sitting still for like 10 hours and coming back for multiple sessions. And they're just, that's like what everyone said, they're too self-aware that he knows what his catchphrase is. And the laugh is supposed to be this violent eruption of psychosis, not a really elegantly penciled tattoo. It's almost like the opposite of what the laugh should be.
Yeah. If they were going to go with the direction of tattoos, I would like them to have been kind of like a mystery.
Yeah.
You know, that has you scratching your head trying to figure out what the product of a demented mind. These tattoos.
Like, what's the story? Like, because I tweeted something like, "Oh, do you want to know how I got these tattoos?" It's like, well, I don't know, I'm a tattoo artist. And you said, "Can I have my mouth and my catchphrase on?"
Yeah,
there's no mystery. Whereas I think Jared Leto tweeted a picture out of I think it was a Jim Lee Joker, and on his back he had this huge Oriental dragon. It's a very weird thing for the Joker to have, this Oriental dragon, and that kind of works like with what you're saying. It's like, why has he got that?
Yeah,
that's like a mad thing for him to get. Not like smiles and
like the mad scars that Heath Ledger had, and the mystery behind them, and the way that story kept changing. That felt like Joker to me. Whereas this, I liked everything else about it though. I'll be honest,
teeth.
I thought the teeth were great.
Yeah, some people are saying they're wondering whether it means like his mouth is weaponized, almost like a Jaws kind of from Bond. Yeah. Like he'll bite people, like you could like the arterial vein or something.
Which is a really good idea, and the fact it's going to be it's not going to be a tall, slender, skinny Joker. It's going to be kind of a buff, physical. I don't know. I think it's sufficiently different to what's gone before in the movies that I think it looks good.
Yeah, so Jordan
just rub that off your forehead.
Jordan Pete on that note says, I think he has a very insane look to him, which is true, which I really like, but I really do hope he eventually gets some clothes. That glove by itself does not look good. They really seem to be showing off his tattoos in the image, so hopefully it doesn't mean he's always shirtless. Hey. Overall, I don't mind his look. It's unique from previous iterations, and I'm sure his acting will be great. There's just one thing, his damaged tattoo, like we said. Yeah. I think it really breaks his character, because from what I know, he doesn't really think of himself in that way, but he sees himself more as an enthusiastic and absurd person, not damaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-awareness.
Bang on, Jordan.
Have you got another one about Suicide Squad?
I do. Oh, actually, no, I don't.
Are we on to Batman v Superman trailer?
Yeah.
So have you got any more to say on Suicide Squad front?
No, I think it's a smart move for it to have Batman in it.
Yep.
I think it will bring all the boys and girls to the yard.
Yeah. And then let's hope they've made a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, obviously, we talked about the BVS trailer and people have had their say on it. So I've got Christopher Cordova who says... what I'm most interested in finding out is something that Dan touched on, which is how does the world view Batman and what he's been through already. We know that in this universe, Batman and Joker have already had confrontations, and I think that it would be interesting if the impetus for Wayne hanging up his cowl was the death of Jason Todd's Robin, which would add to even more ruthless demeanour upon his return, hence the "Do you bleed" line, which, as Chris pointed out, does seem out of character without any context.
It's interesting, that kind of dovetails with what Ryan was saying, whether they do have a flashback sequence that outlines another key event in Batman's career that we just haven't seen in the films, because we've never really got to that, like, endgame Batman.
No.
I think it'd be interesting, because it's something we're going to be in a different city where Batman will have history, and it'll be a really good counterpoint to the way that humanity is now fearing Superman. What do the people of Gotham think about this crusader that they've had in their town for maybe 20 years at that point? So it might be a nice antithesis for them to play on.
Yeah. And the "Do you bleed" line, actually, we've had quite a lot of emails about that. I don't know if I think you might have one. I've certainly got one.
Not right here, I don't think.
Okay, I've got one from Simon Hamilton, who says, the quote at the end, "Do you bleed, you will. I couldn't help but wonder if Warner Brothers and DC are just making it seem like Batman is saying it, when really someone like Darkseid or Brainiac or even an armoured Luthor is really saying it. As people have pointed out, it's not a very Batman thing to say, but the quote would suit one of those three mentioned. It's a long shot, but what do you guys think?"
I think maybe we're grasping a bit too much there. I think the trailer's definitely cut to imply that, obviously. I don't think it is.
So you think it's Batman saying?
I think it is Batman.
Yep.
I think this maybe show that he's going to extreme measures.
Do you bleed?
So next one is from no name. So I do not. It's Tony. It says in the first sentence. I was looking at the end.
Hi, Tony.
I was looking at the email address. I thought, I'm not going to read out your email address. I do not think you are Marvel biased fanboys, like a lot of the comments say. Do they? I don't read them.
That's not nice, is it?
I don't read them when they're mean.
We're always apologising for that.
With that said, I do think you're a little harder on what WB is trying to do with DC. DC has always been more serious than Marvel has, which is a strength as much as it is a weakness. Marvel has always aimed for younger audiences, I think not kids exactly, but like young adults, while DC is on the older side of that spectrum. I respect and like a lot what WB is going for tone-wise, and they're not copying Marvel's tone, because otherwise it would be them just ripping off Marvel, and I think that would be the worst thing they could honestly do. I would argue that Marvel movies have a little bit too much humour, and sometimes they feel like comedies or even juvenile, looking at Iron Man 2 especially, and Iron Man 3. I think Winter Soldier is actually quite serious, but it has a few moments of levity, which is just the right balance.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. We did get a couple of emails about Age of Ultron, people being annoyed at how much humour was in it, that you couldn't have a scene go by without people having to quip, and I think that's partly a Joss Whedon thing as well. I think it's very weird. But to the point that it was annoying them a little bit.
And I guess that Whedon influence has kind of permeated the brain trust, his style. There's a lot of shared people.
I would counter, though, that that's not entirely accurate either, because
all the comments are always brilliant and they love it.
No, but they're saying that Warner Brothers and DC only do serious. Have you seen Batman and Robin lately? They don't only always do serious.
Also, I think we almost have to draw a line in the sand, and even though they are WB and the DC films, we have to start discounting Nolan. That's a different thing. I was thinking about this the other day. When Man of Steel launched, they played, rightly so, why wouldn't you, so heavily on the fact that it was executive produced by Chris Nolan. It basically, what he did, and we're kind of linking it in. And then a lot of people got confused, like, well, is it the same universe?
It's very confusing. Nolan? It was confusing.
But it's not. It's a break.
Yeah.
It's a break, so that has to be put aside. And we are guilty of this. We're talking about what DC are doing. We're right at the beginning. They've only had one film out of the gates in this new connected universe. So it's really hard to know where they'll go. And obviously last week's title, How Many Jokes in Batman vs Superman, was almost to imply the contrast that maybe Marvel is a bit too jokey.
It was flippant, wasn't it? Yeah, but it was flippant.
It was very flippant of us, Chris. But that's what we do best.
Have you got another one there?
Yes, this is Judon from New Jersey. My thoughts are from the BVS trailer. Well, so it was pretty awesome. As a fan of both DC and Marvel Entertainment, of course, there will be distinct differences between them. Yeah, it's part of the success of the companies. You talked about how there is a more grittier, darker tone to the new DC movies, and honestly, I prefer it. I remember watching the end of Man of Steel, which was really good, and how it almost had the element of Superman having to make a choice of letting civilians die or killing Zod, which he did. Spoiler. I can see where DC is going and how they want to separate themselves from Marvel. I do believe it's important to have different tones for each franchise, and I prefer how each one decides to go. Batman vs Superman looks awesome.
So that's a very positive email.
Yep.
This is quite an interesting one. It's from Zachary Fitzgerald, who lives in Dublin. And he says, hey guys, big fan of the show. Just in relation to Batman v Superman piece you did about the humour, almost all of the DC animated movies have been pretty dark and have all been incredible, especially the excellent Flashpoint Paradox, Dark Knight Returns, and Under the Red Hood. And even the Justice League animated movies have been dark and have been great at balancing the tones of all the characters. DC have always managed to mix tones perfectly in these movies, and I think they will be able to draw from that and do it justice in the coming years.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And we need to catch up on those animated films, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We'll do a whole show about that. And finally, Keaton Williams has said he's going to go with 3 jokes being in Batman vs Superman. So we'll hold you to that, Keaton. Cheers.
That was in line with me, wasn't it? Wasn't that what? Didn't I say 3 and you said 4?
Yeah, I said 4, and then you, like Price is Right, you undercut me at 3. You've been cautious.
I'd written down 3 already.
How can people get in touch with us, Chris?
The superhero show at IGN.com.
Yeah, and for everything on Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and all the other ones, stay right here on IGN.